I didn't know this story on which it is based, which it's based on a book by a true crime writer, Kathy Scott. How did you happen upon it?
I was working on a project with her about the Notorious B.I.G. because she wrote a book about him. And, for several reasons we weren't able to get that going. So I started looking at some of the other books that she'd written because she's really a fantastic historian, really. I mean, if she's going to write a book about a story, she's not gossiping. She's got all the facts. And so anything that she was writing, I was kind of course, wanting to dig into. And she sent me this book, and I saw the cover. And the cover of Vegas, just downtown Vegas, it just was so, appealing to me, I guess. Not that I'm a big Vegas person, but it was just something, it just drew me in, the cover, right away. And then I read the story, and I thought it had the elements of a great movie because it just sort of had those really super saturated kind of noir elements that I found in the story, and so I thought they'd make a great script, and that was kind of the beginning of the journey.
You brought up Vegas, and that's another thing that's great about the film is its setting, because Vegas is such an odd place. And I'm curious, in your preparation of the film and the time that you spent there during production, what about Vegas did you want to bring to the forefront?
That's a good question. I guess I just, when I first got there, we weren't sure if it was going to be done, set in the 90s, originally about Ted Binion. And then I sort of started discovering this kind of new Vegas because we stayed there. We got there in August, and we didn't start shooting until February 1st, so I was kind of living there. And I started examining this new Vegas and this kind of post-recession Vegas, where it's very international Las Vegas now, and it's being reinvigorated, and there's great communities to live in, gated communities. When Ted Binion was alive, there was no gated, really, community. Everyone lived kind of right off the Strip, and now things are away from the Strip. So this new Vegas kind of brought me in to see a Vegas that was totally different than any Vegas I had ever seen in a movie or any Vegas that I had ever experienced. Because every time I went to Vegas, it was always, I was kind of hoarded in on the Strip with everybody, So I became very, very engrossed in Las Vegas, in the visual of it, of the downtown and the suburbs and the mountains and the nature and the desert. And so then we decided, I thought, the movie has to be made in modern day Vegas. So then it could no longer be the Ted Binion story, which was just as well for me because I didn't want to have to, that wasn't what I was going for, a movie about Ted Binion. It was just those characters and those type of a situation that occurred that happened in his life unlocked kind of a great narrative. Yeah. Even though I think people that would see it maybe unintentionally have seen it and said, God, there's a lot of parallels here. It's unbelievable. This is the story. But that wasn't really my intention. My intention was to show these modern kind of flawed, materialistic lifestyles.
Another great joy of the film is that Michael Madsen has a role that is really rich that he can sink his teeth into. And
I mean, Michael and I have known each other for 25 years, about 27 years, because we first as an actor, I was in The Doors, and we had a scene together in The Doors when he was just starting out. I don't know if he was just starting out, but he was definitely, in the beginnings of his career, and I was just 17 years old. And then 10 years later, we did another film together that I directed. And then, now I found myself in Vegas, 2016, 16 years later from the movie that we made together, and I read the script and was there, and I thought, God, this Michael is just perfect. You know, he's really the only one who can play this role that has the, you know, he has the combination of kind of sophistication and savagery at the same time, you know, and that to me was what this character needed to have. He was a bear, you know, that came out of his cave and took what he wanted, and I thought Michael had that. So when he connected to the script and he came out and he started, you know, and he showed up in the clothes and the wardrobe and just the way he was talking about the scenes, it was like he completed the movie. I couldn't even imagine it without him. Didn't even imagine it. So it was
Was the narration because he does great narration in the film too? Was that always a part of the concept?
No, it wasn't. It was one of those things that kind of evolved. You know, he was constantly saying to me while we were shooting, we should do it, because there's these inner thoughts that this guy's having, and you know, I didn't want to have a narration that was like typical explain the plot. I wanted more to, you know, I love the idea like he was talking from the dead, and then he wrote this narration after we cut the film, and he sent me a narration, and it was just mesmerizing, you know, what he wrote. And then I wrote some stuff, and he just went to a studio and set them all, and then we sort of put that into the narrative to enhance the silence, you know, use it like almost like music, you know, like it's Michael's so poetic, you know, and I felt like that added a poetry that gave, you know, Ray a more, you know, passionate aspect.
That is what I liked about it, because it is exactly as you say. It kind of adds a poetic feeling, and it's not on the nose like bad narration tends to be. So
yeah, I mean, you know, this is a movie that like it's tough because look, I mean, the toughest thing, not the toughest thing for me, but I think one of the challenges I have is, you know, we shot this movie on 35 millimeter film, which I say because it's an anomaly today. And it's even more of an anomaly because the people are going to see it as a MP3 or MP4 compressed file. And I go back to that because I still think it works, the movie. But when I would sit and watch the movie and think of the shots or the editing or the pacing, you know, I was intending for people to be leaning back and watching these big masters that would slowly bring you into a mood, right? But now, because everyone is going to see the movie, which is why the editing and the narration helps so much, and you know, so many aspects of it. But the people are going to watch the movie, and unless they really can relax and get into the rhythm, and you know, that's my concern, is that people are going to be able to, you know, relax with the picture, because it's that kind of picture. It is a meditation in a sense. I mean, I love a movie like Badlands.
Yeah.
You know, I like that movie. I love those movies where you can, you know, kind of sit back and a story kind of comes to you like, you know, like a fish, not like a, you know, you're not, it's not aggressive. And when you're looking at things, you know, in and small, it's different than when you're looking, even when you're editing, than when you're looking and you're sitting back. And I think it's, you know, unfortunate, but it's the reality, you know. That's how we're experiencing things now. And so I think the narrative works, even though, despite that, I still think the narrative works because it's a great story, and every frame is, you know, compelling.
I think it absolutely is, and I love what you're talking about, because movies like this one and like Badlands, as you mentioned, they're movies that you kind of settle into. You kind of let them
settle in.
wash over you, and I find that the most transcendent movies do that, and that's at the very top level what I'm looking for from a film. So I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like food, you know. Like I'm getting to the point now where I can eat something, and it may not be the exact taste I want, but I can tell that it's something I'm going to want to eat a lot of because it's new and it's subtle. It's a subtle palate, you know. It's not like you know what I mean? It's like it has levels to it. And the levels, you know, are the product of a lot of work, you know, and a lot of thought. So if people want to have that experience, which is kind of a, you know, like a book or like an article or like music, really, you know, then I think they're gonna really enjoy the film. But if they're looking for, you know, the Ted Binion murder mystery movie, I mean, I don't want to lose those buyers, but I would caution them, because I think that's not what the picture has a lot to do with Ted Binion, but it doesn't have to. It's more about the experience of that world.
You know, you're like me in that, you know, we both came up at a time where movies. It was obvious that a lot of the movies that came up from the 70s, for instance, some of which your parents were behind, they had a shelf life, and today it seems like they don't have that. They're the opening weekend, and then they're kind of thrown out and forgotten about beyond the opening weekend.
I mean it's kind of like, when I start thinking about that, it's kind of like someone coming at me and saying, you know, you're gonna die. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I mean, you know, it is so depressing, but there's nothing I can do. So it's almost like a current. If we were fish, or like, you know, in Finding Nemo, when the fish gets stuck with the turtles and goes all the way to Australia. You know what I mean? And do you see Finding Nemo?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, like you know, that's what this thing is. It's overwhelming. It's disturbing, but at the end of the day, I think if we just focus on doing what we do, the rest will get figured out. You know, of course, it's hard for me because, and you, I'm sure as well, because I come from a time when I could watch the picture and enjoy the picture, but at the same time, you know, now I can buy it on iTunes and watch it tonight. So I mean, it's you know, I don't know. It is what it is. I think that it has to work no matter what. Movies are movies, you know. Scenes, acting, cinematography, music, storytelling. They can't change that.
You know, I'm not a filmmaker, but I devote a significant portion of my life to the appreciation of films, and I envy someone like you, because you are probably first and foremost a writer. I mean, you write novellas, you write scripts, and then on top of that, your work as a director. Does it feel like two different muscles being exercised there? Because writing seems so solitary, and directing is the exact opposite of that.
You know, you're right in a way, and I sometimes I feel like when I get to make a movie, it's my time to socialize, because I'm never around anybody, and then suddenly I'm, you know, talking to everybody and exercising those people skills of that, you know, executing, but I never can forget the guy that was in the room, or even, you know, that was in the room, that guy who did the work, you know. That's me, and I'm just there to kind of like get his thing out. You know, this script wasn't written by me, so it was a different process. But at the same time, I then, you know, would take the script. We were in Vegas, and like we didn't know if we were going to get the money. We didn't know, so what I did is I worked on my shot list. You know, so my shot list would be like, it was like 90 pages or 95 pages. So when I show up to the set where I'm around all those people, I have my shot list. You know, so that gives me, I don't get carried away by the, you know, I just got to get those shots done, because if I miss a day, it's over. You know, you have to be on an independent movie of the budget, you know, my film anyway, I had to be perfect, undefeated. You have to be undefeated. You can't have one day where you miss. And that's you know, when that is a totally different process in writing.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about one other film on your resume. I'm sure you're asked about it all the time, but speaking of being affected by something, I was 16, 17 around the time Born on the 4th of July came out, and it was kind of a seismic moment for me to see that movie. And
we're probably the same age.
Yeah, I think so. What did that feel like? Kind of a sacred project when you got involved in it?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Everything about it. I mean, from the first meeting where I met Oliver Stone, and he asked me what role I wanted, and I told him the role I wanted to play Tom Cruise's brother, and he laughed at me. He said, "You look like Tom. You think you look like Tom Cruise?" He was kind of like teasing me, That's how it sounded. And I said, "Yeah, I want the chance." And then I was in Europe, and I was telling everybody I was doing this movie, even though I never had an audition. I just thought I would tell people, and it would make it real. And then he called me in. He had me come in and do an audition, and I did the audition, and and then I had another audition, and I got the role, and it was seismic because everybody was so on top of their game, at that right there. Just everybody was it was like, you know what I mean? It felt like being on the Golden State Warriors, whatever that must feel like, or the, you're just on the team. Everyone was hungry, and the budget was, you felt magic, and I was so proud to be involved in that, to watch that.